Well, first of all, thank you for coming. I appreciate you coming here. Why don't we
for
just,
having me.
of course. So why don't we just start with introductions? Go ahead and just introduce yourself to the people that are listening. Yeah, take it away.
Well, my name is Wendell Noel. I'm a very long time electronic music listener, fan, and DJ. Actually, I started getting into electronic music probably around, I'm going to say 94-ish.
Okay.
Yeah, when I started really getting into house music back then. And from there, I discovered all the different styles, whether it be trance, techno, hardcore, drum and bass. Of course, there's different styles of hardcore. But with that, I really fell in love with drum and bass and focused on that for a lot of years. But house still being my first love, have reincorporated that into my life, essentially.
All right.
With another alias.
So what are you have two aliases,
I have
right?
two aliases, yes. So my more known alias is overall T.A.B.U, T.A.B.U, which is my drum and bass alias, and have a kind of fun placeholder-ish house alias, which is Mr.Wendell. It's somewhere where I can experiment and further develop that side of myself as an artist.
Okay. So yeah, let's before 94, when you started getting into EDM, like where were you from? Where were you born and raised? Yeah.
Born and raised, okay, we go all the way back. So
Yeah.
I was born in St. Croix, Virgin Islands, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yes, which is a U.S. territory.
Yeah.
So, I was blessed with being born a U.S. citizen. And my parents are actually born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay.
Yes. So, I have island blood in me.
Yeah. I love it. And then in 94, you were pretty much here in LA by that point, right?
Yes, by 94, I was in LA. So, my childhood was in Houston until I was about 10.
Yeah.
And from there, we moved to Long Beach. So that's really where I grew up, found myself, discovered, my interests, who I was, things of that nature. And so I went to, elementary, junior high school in both Long Beach and Lakewood.
Okay.
And from there, lived all over LA and Orange County until getting back to Long Beach here not too long ago.
So in all this time, has music ever introduced itself in any other form, or was it?
That's a great question. Actually, it did. It's funny because when I was probably around, I'm going to say 7 or 8, like with my cousins, they would always have kind of like cardboard set up in the garage.
Yeah.
Like back then, breakdancing was getting real popular. So they would have cardboard set up in the garage and they would like practice breakdancing and all this stuff. I don't know if any of us were any good.
Yeah.
Everybody was giving it a go, right? And also with that, with some other cousins, we would learn the words to songs, right?
Yeah.
Back then it was hip hop, right? So I always remember like learning the words to Special Ed, The Magnificent, which is like one of the dopest hip hop songs in my opinion ever. And, really like getting into it to the point to where we started coming up, myself, my sister, my cousins, my older sister, my cousins, we would start coming up with our own songs. We were writing lyrics. We were trying to record it on like one of those old track recorders.
Yeah.
We're like running beats in the background and just like, so yeah, I started actually messing around with music at a pretty young age.
Yeah. And would you say that was kind of like the catalyst that slowly started to attract you to making music in general?
I don't think it was a catalyst per se. It was something that was really fun that I didn't know why I was so interested in it. Yet it kind of died off, I guess you could say, right? It was like kind of a temporary moment almost.
Yeah.
But looking back, it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And, from there, just like listening to a lot of music, I really wasn't buying a lot of music until, firstly, there was that, what's it like, BMG music club back in the day.
Sure.
Yeah, it was like this thing where like you fill out this little paper, they send it in the mail, and you're like, oh, like get this many cassette tapes, right?
Oh,
It's like a
okay.
subscription thing.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get this many for free, and like you put a penny, like you tape a penny on.
Okay.
Really good marketing.
Yeah.
You tape a penny on it, right? You fill out like you get 3 or however many cassettes,
Interesting.
like albums, right? And you mail it in. And I was a kid. I probably shouldn't have even been doing that. Probably wasn't legal. Like,
Yeah.
you can't sign anything. You're not 18. Either way, I started getting like these cassettes every month.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I didn't start really buying music until probably like late junior high or like,
Okay.
yeah, early high school. I started like really buying music. And at that time, it was when Long Beach was getting known for Snoop Dogg and things of that nature.
Yeah.
You know, so I was listening to a lot of the, you know, hip hop and rap of that moment, you know, from, you know, the West Coast, and then got reintroduced to a lot of the artists in the East Coast, you know, through friends and things of that nature. So as far as like, you know, the journey,
Yeah.
like it was a lot of that stuff like growing up. So there was a break and just like kind of rediscovering music on my own outside of what's on the radio, essentially. Because even a lot of stuff on the radio, like I heard it, but I didn't know who it was.
Right. Yeah,
Just playing in the car. Yeah. You know, my dad's driving and we're in the car on the back seat and music playing. But, you know, I didn't have like a lot of albums and things like that. I do remember though having my first record, which was Prince's Little Red Corvette. It was like on a 10-inch.
Oh, okay. A little one.
Super tiny.
Yeah.
You know, they had these old like stereo receiver combo thing, like a record player on top.
Oh, these are massive too. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that big. It was like, you know, it was like pretty light overall.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the old receivers. Like
Yeah. Oh, okay.
amp receivers.
Yeah.
Like this one was just much more compact and had the little record player on top and had the FM receiver, had a little cassette deck, and then like a little kind of storage thing at the bottom for your cassettes, a little drawer thing. And I remember, you know, just playing that record out like over and over.
And so you got tired of it, huh?
You know, I got tired of it or I lost it or something, right? So, you know, that was kind of like my first like touch into like having music and listening to it, playing it.
Okay.
Nature. So it was not until, like I said, around 94, which was like, you know, late into my high school years when it was like I started to hear house music.
Okay.
You know, it's like
Here in a sense, like it was just being played on the radio, or
yes, back then it was Power Tools.
Okay.
And they would play like a lot of the top house music at the time, right? So it was like an amazing show, and like it really made an impact, I feel, in LA on the growth of the house music scene.
Okay.
Yeah. So Power 106.
I want to.
Yeah, which is major station.
Yeah.
Right. So back then they'd have like a certain, you know, amount of hours or segments that they would have, and they would do like house music.
I mean, even this day, are there any like radio stations that does that?
Not now. I mean, are there any radios? I mean, there's radio stations, but you know, so there are some, I guess you'll say, since electronic music has become a little bit more pop with EDM.
Yeah.
Like there's some certain tunes that connect with the broader audience.
Yeah.
Right. You have like your Avicii, you know, where like you start hearing electronic music, like when you're walking through a mall or like in Target. Or like 21 or Target or whatever. It's like, oh, there's Avicii. Right. So stuff like that. But before that, there wasn't, especially at that time, there wasn't really any stations that are playing like electronic music. Right. So I really started to get really interested in it at that time.
Was it like, you know, you're just tuning in, it pops up and you're like, oh, what's this? You know,
I can't really remember like how I came across it.
Yeah.
You know, there was like just a collection of events. There was the events where I found out what a rave was.
Oh, I want to hear about that.
Right. So basically, and I've actually talked about this on the Underland radio podcast. And essentially I was a kid, I was at home, and on TV, Fox had this thing. It's called Fox Undercover, right? So it was always like some episodes warning parents of something going on in the world. And a lot of times there's something that their kids are doing that parents don't realize kids are doing these days. It's like, oh, your kids are, huffing oven cleaner.
Yeah.
Like spraying it into a bag and like inhaling it. Like, oh, watch out for that. And then one of them was like Fox Undercover raves. It's like your kids dancing in dark rooms all night long. It's like, and I saw this, and it just hit me. Like that was like a big moment. I was like, I know what that is, but I want to go to one of those. Like it was like a full on advertisement for me. Wow. I was like, oh my gosh, like that, like
how do I get into one of those? Yeah.
I was like, that is for me.
Yeah.
I just knew like that's for me. And that was like the beginning of the spark, really.
Damn. And then, so, I mean, back then, at least, it wasn't, it was like a treasure map. You kind of had to, phone call in, and they would tell you to go somewhere. And
as far as events?
Yeah, to get to these underground events.
Right. So back then, there were basically flyers.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, there was no, like, quote unquote, internet. Like, it wasn't big. I think there were, like, bulletin board services and stuff like that. Yeah. Right? Which, kind of a small segmented group of people were on.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't, like, readily accessible. There's no Google.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was basically flyers and word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And I actually started hanging out with like the tag bangers in high school.
What does that mean?
So what that means is, they're taggers.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of get into a little bit of trouble.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like gangbangers, but they weren't really gangbangers.
Yeah.
They really didn't get into much trouble.
Yeah.
Like most they would do is like go into the bathroom and smoke weed.
Okay.
Run around and be kind of knuckleheads, right? So I was like hanging out with the tag bangers, right? And they kind of like, they brought me in, to me. Like they jumped me in. You're like, all right, you're one of us now. Come on, we're jump you in. This is like at school. So like everybody jumps, like socks me up. I'm like, not in the face.
Fair.
Yeah, it's like it's silly, right?
Yeah.
But so like they knew like the housers.
Oh.
And the housers were like kind of the original rave kids. Like they're the ones that were like wearing the baggy pants. Yeah. And like had like the character backpacks.
Yeah.
Or like the cereal box backpacks.
Yeah.
Like they were making their like people made their own rave gear.
Yeah. I remember
like
that.
You didn't go to the store and get it. Like I remember there was a store, I can't remember the name of it. There was a store that got popular for kind of having stuff for rave gear. Mm-hmm. And so it's like they knew those kids, and those kids had the flyers. Mm-hmm. So they knew where the parties were, right? So through that, like we had our little spot. Yeah. Like everybody had their spot. It's all the little cliques, right? So we had our spot, and then they just kind of float around. Yeah. So they come around, they float around to where we were, and then like had the two guys that knew them, they go over there. And we were like, yo, what's up? They'd rap, and we all be chilling. And like, they come back, like, all right, cool. Like, this party's over here. And we're like, okay, wow. Like, so I was still like waiting to go to my first party, right? Yeah. So like, I was like super excited. So eventually, like, we ended up going to this underground, like, I swear it was like in Huntington Park, like in the basement in some like small alleyway. It's a random spot. Yeah. Like you go in, went down, it's like probably like a 20 by 20 room or something, right? Yeah. And just like hot, like there's like no AC, and there's just a DJ in there, and just everybody in there just like dancing, right? So like, yeah, we went down and we're like, oh shit, we're here. Wow. Right? We're like, oh my gosh. So we just like went in and like we like all danced around for like a half hour to the hour. We're like, all right, cool, we did it. So that was like kind of the first taste, right? Yeah. And then from there, like went on to going to some bigger events. A big moment was went to a hardcore techno show.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes. This was like back in the days of like DJ Tron, of course, Ron Decor, Delta 9, like a bunch of like the original like hardcore DJs
Yeah.
back then. And went to this hardcore party, and it was like similar kind of experience, right? Like some random like tiny warehouse somewhere. And I just like got so into it. It was so cool. And
Did you know you were going to it? Like, was it hardcore? You know?
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
wanted, like, you specifically wanted to go to that. And
Well,
wasn't by mistake.
because like some of my friends had hardcore mixtapes. Back then it was all mixtapes, you
that is
know.
true. Okay.
Oh yeah, like my
Yeah,
friends
yeah.
had hardcore mixtapes, and like we're listening to these hardcore mixtapes. They were dope, you know. And it's like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, this person's gonna be there. Just I didn't know all the names, but it's like I knew at least a couple.
Yeah.
And we went, and it was just like, dude, the
famous,
sound, the room, just like it was like, at that age, it was like so intense and so like engulfing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, especially because, like, compared to today, where you can just see it on your phone
You see it on YouTube,
and YouTube,
and it's massive.
Yeah.
Right? It's massive.
compared to back then, you had no idea what you were getting yourself
Oh,
into.
no.
You don't know what it even looks like. Or,
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of the places, especially for undergrounds, you know, they were not in the safest of places, right?
man, yeah.
Right. So you know,
You never knew.
yeah, you had to like, you know, have a good head on your shoulders, like be aware you're surrounded.
Hopefully, at least
You know,
with some friends to kind of like,
hey, you know, with a few friends, and it's like, you know, everybody's looking out for each other. Whatnot.
yeah. But at least,
But it was a wild, wild west, dude.
oh, I bet. Damn. And then, like, but at least the crowd, I feel like it's still kind of encapsulated. You know, everyone kind of takes care of everyone. It wasn't like very just keep to yourself type of vibe, was it?
A little bit, you know,
Okay.
it's like there was a moment where, of course, like Plur,
Yeah.
you know, started
Yeah.
coming about, and like being a raver
Yeah.
was a thing, right?
Yeah.
So around that time, yeah, it became more of like almost a community type feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, it's like you get a lot of randos, right? Like
Yeah.
show up and like you don't know what their intentions are.
Yeah,
So
there's
no
always-
matter what, man, like
There's always a
stuff.
few bad eggs.
Man, stuff went down, man. Stuff
Yeah.
went down back then. Like, you know, sometimes people with guns, sometimes people just want to
Really?
fight, sometimes people want to jack people. Like, stuff
Yeah.
went down, man. It was like I said, it was a little bit of the wild, wild west. So you just had to like.
There's always that little bit of tension in the back.
Exactly, there was for sure.
So, in your raving career, or at least, you know, as your raving career started to pick up, were you more going to those underground events, or did you maybe start going to like the festivals? Like I know that like Insomniac was starting to, you know,
Yes,
grow.
Insomniac was there. They were growing. So even back then, like as far as I know, they weren't called festivals. Like they were just massives.
Okay.
They were massives. So
Yeah.
like you'd see this huge, like just dope flyer.
Yeah.
Again, it was still flyers. Like you'd come out of the party, and that's how you found out about next parties, because there's people out there handing out flyers.
Yep.
So like, you know, of course at first, like you're taking all the flyers, like, and later you're like, oh, I've been to all these parties. Like, I'm good. I'll eat your flyer. So I know where all the parties are. But yeah, dude, like you come out, you get all the flyers, and you're just like collecting flyers. But
Yeah.
that was part of the fun of it, because the flyers back then were like, they were dope, man.
Yeah, they
like,
put a lot of effort into it.
yeah, just like different vibes. Even if it was a small flyer, all the way up to like the big ones, like fold out, like,
Oh.
yeah, and they look super cool when you're tripping. I have to be honest, right? I'm just saying.
Everyone, yeah.
Right. Stages and phases, right? So yeah, it's just like you like look at the flyers and you just see the images. Like,
Yeah.
everything's vivid. It's just there's so much that went into all of that, right?
Yeah.
So that was a big part of it. Just like going, get the flyers, you know, or the next, or you kind of pick which next party you're going to go to. And yes, Insomniac was doing some parties.
Yeah.
There was a lot of promoters also. One of them that comes to mind was Go Ventures back in the day. They're doing some of the bigger parties. And again, they were massives.
Yeah.
Right? They were massives. And yeah, Insomniac did like start to throw really, really amazing parties, like, the Beyond Wonderland and things of that nature. And I think that was like one of the, of course, there's Electric Daisy Carnival.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed, which I was actually at the first one.
No way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I want to hear
And,
about that.
it was cool as, of course, nothing like it is now.
Oh, for sure.
Right, right.
But
So
back then, there was nothing like it.
it was just a vision collectively, in my opinion, that this music, this collection of sounds and genres is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? And like people need to hear it, and people need a space to hear it. And people need a space to hear it, more and more that's safe. More and more that has good sound, that's well organized, that's everything. So it's like you just have everyone, working at doing that in their own way. And, that's where we started getting the massives, right? We had like huge lineups, like headliners, people from out of state, and, bigger stages. And a lot of times they were farther away.
Okay.
Right, right. So I remember a lot of them back then were San Bernardino at Orange Show, which is now Knott's Event Center, right? So, which is Orange Show, which to me was just like this big place with airplane hangars, right? So, and even back then, sometimes there'd be like 2 or 3 areas, sometimes just like one of those hangars, right? Like, I remember seeing Electric Sky Church at one of those. It was just like one of the hangars, and probably, like maybe 500 to 1,000 people.
Oh. Yeah.
So it was spacious.
Yeah.
It was spacious.
For Knott's Event Center?
Well, again, it was just one of the hangars, wasn't like the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right, right. Or they might have a tent at another one where they have like hardcore in the tent or trance or whatever, right? But again, it's like, it was spacious. There's room to walk around. There's room to like see people.
Yeah.
And like people were chilling, doing their thing. And like, of course, like everyone's people watching because you're like, it's like, oh, look what that guy wearing. Oh, that's cool. Or, or that guy's tripping. Is that guy okay? Are they okay? Am I okay?
Yeah.
Right?
Man.
So yeah, dude, it's like, it was spacious, different. It's like you could walk around, you can like have bass and walk all the way up to the stage and like meet people and chill.
That's amazing. And then back then, the candy culture was huge. During that time too. Right?
Yes, it was. It was birth of the candy culture. As ravers.
And then there was one thing I've heard. You didn't really go to these events with your original name. I've heard people would sometimes give themselves nicknames.
Yeah, that was a thing.
Yeah.
I never really did that myself.
Yeah.
I did eventually, pick a DJ name.
Yeah.
I guess that would be close to a nickname I had. But yeah, people would do that. People have like their raver names, right?
That's interesting. Yeah, it's a whole different world back then.
Yes, exchanging candy.
Yeah.
The bracelets and whatnot. Like, then you get the people who are like,
oh yeah,
all the way, full all the way up, both sides, is like full gauntlet.
Yeah, no, people get super into it.
Full on gauntlet of candy. Like, hey, I wore a few bits here and there. But,
everyone tries it. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I had like my little candy necklace with this water gun on it.
Oh, I love that.
Tiny skirt water gun on there. Stuff like that. Rocked all my baggy clothes, baggy Adidas.
I love that. That was like the style when you're raving is like more of the baggy clothes.
Oh, big time.
Really?
Big time. Oh, yeah. Oh, dude, just go on one of the Facebook groups. Like, like I raved in the 90s groups and stuff like that.
In the 90s? Okay.
Yeah. You'll see all the old school pictures, dude.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. You can see the culture. Like, it's like the baggy, like, Adidas baggy pants, a flared out baggy pants, and it's like Mickey Mouse gloves, like
the clothing as well.
Because you have the black lights, the lasers, the Mickey gloves, and like it was so cool, dude. It's like it's like we were kids, man. We were just having a blast, dude. Yeah.
So I mean, now you're pretty much deep into the culture, familiar with the music. When did you start being behind the decks?
So joined basically what was like a party crew, right?
Okay.
So the party crew would either throw events or help promote other people's events,
Okay.
or a combination of the both, right?
Yeah.
So I was in the party crew, which is called C.A.A. It's Characters in Action, right? And we would have like these meetings, right? So I kind of like fell into it. It's like, well, I like to go to parties. Well, my friends is party crew, so yeah, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, all right, cool. I'm in a party crew now. Like I was kind of just like going with the flow a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
And we're having a meeting. It was in Diamond Bar at, one of our friends' place. And in the background, like while we were talking about, I wasn't really saying much. I was just soaking it all in. Like, I just wait for the next party. Like, this is cool. All right, want to pitch in here? Pitch in. What's the next party? So, like, we're in the room. They're talking about the event. And in the room were these two guys, like, taking turns in turntables. Right? Like, while we're having the meeting.
Yeah.
So, like, while they're talking, like, I'm tripping out. Like, what are these guys doing? Like, this is cool.
Okay.
Like, I was more interested in that than like organizing the party. And shortly after, we were at a club event. It was like a warehouse club event.
Yeah.
Not quite underground, kind of in the middle. And one of the DJs who was there in that room spinning was on stage. And I remember like it was a big space, pretty decent sized stage. It was DJ Kid. And I remember like being out in the audience area and walking up, looking up and like seeing Kid, like that was the guy in the room.
Yeah.
And it just like hit me like a bolt.
Yeah.
Like I want to do that. It was like very much like the Fox Undercover thing, like that feeling like I want to go to one of those. And it was like the exact same thing. It was like, I want to do that. Like I'm going to do that. And there was like no turning back from that moment. Yeah. And funny story, years later, when I got my first pair of techniques, I actually, asked around and Kid was selling his techniques. And so the first pair of techniques that I started learning on were from the guy that
got you.
That inspired me to become a DJ. So that was super cool. Yeah.
So around what year would you say like this is when you were starting?
So I was starting around like 97.
Okay, so
I started buying records probably more in like 96, 95, 96. So I was buying records and I had like an old like belt drive turntable with like an auto return.
Oh, okay.
On the tone arm, right?
Yeah.
So like it gets to the end and comes up and it like puts itself back. And I had probably still one of those old like stereo sets, right? Like I was talking about. So what I would do is I would like so there was, as far as radio stations, there's also Groove Radio at that time, like a little bit after Power Tools, there was Groove Radio. Before that, there was Mars FM. I didn't listen to that much, but I really like knew about Groove Radio. And it was electronic music again. But they kind of went deeper. Like, like they would do like kind of progressive. They would do drum and bass.
Oh, okay.
They would do breaks. They would do like more across the board of the realm of what electronic music had to offer.
Oh, that's fun.
It was so good. Big up Swedish Eagle. Indeed. And so I started kind of buying records even when I didn't have technique. So I would use this old belt drive turntable that I got through like a circular they used to sell back in the day called the Penny Saver.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you know the Penny Saver, right? So I'm like, go to the Penny Saver because there was no Craigslist. Again, it's like there was no nothing, right? So I was like, oh shoot, okay, I found this little like someone selling a turntable. It's like, all right, when I bought this turntable for like really cheap, used, and I would use the stereo, and what I would do with while a song was playing on the radio, or like a mixtape, but a lot of times the radio. That for me, that was like the test. I would use this tiny little like pitch knob thing, like this tiny little thing, right? And I would like try to adjust it, and it wasn't really designed for DJing.
Yeah.
But I would like see how fast I could like match the speed of the record to the song that was playing on the radio.
Whoa, okay.
Right, because there's no do-over. It's song done. The next song, you gotta do it all over again. So that was like me cutting my teeth essentially on learning how to DJ.
Because you were very limited on equipment. You just had that.
That's all I had.
So you had to get very creative.
Oh, I got so creative back then, man. Like I had a car stereo that I like hook up into my room with like an old school bandpass, like dual 12-inch subwoofer setup over here. Like I brought in like a car battery, like sitting on like a piece of cardboard to like power the car stereo. Like I was like figuring all this stuff and learning electronics. And actually I was doing a lot of like sound stuff with my friends. Like before that, we would basically take whoever's car or whoever's parents' car for the night, and we would like hook up all this sound into it. So it had to be temporary. Yeah. So we had to be able to pull it out the next day without any
like the battery being dead in the car.
Right. Or without any clues, right? Or like
I see.
Like we couldn't leave a trail, right? No fingerprints. So like we would like set up the system into whoever's like parents' car for the night, and we'd like mob out, and like whether it be like over to Hollywood back then, like there was cruising on Hollywood Boulevard. Like people just turn out and just cruise. Yeah. Like lowriders, like classic cars, just everybody was just cruising, and everybody like hollering out the window at each other, hollering at chicks or whatever. It's like it was like a whole different world back then, man. Like we don't have that now. It was like the thing. So we just like pile in sound system, like get all of our CDs together, like all right, what has the best bass, right? And we would like just cruise and like bump, right? And so like with that, I was learning all the sound and
learning how to work with sound.
Yeah, exactly. Amplifiers, car stereos, speakers, enclosures, all that stuff. So yeah, I had a lot of that stuff in my room, like as a teenager, and I would just hook it up and figure out like how to do what I had to do, how to do what I wanted
it looked like a mad scientist lab in your room.
Basically
audio equipment,
and then my Nintendo.
I love it.
I could play Final Fantasy.
Nice.
Final Fantasy 3, of course.
So yeah, you're using the radio to learn, and then when did you eventually get to a point where you performed?
So I'm not sure I call it performance yet. When I did get my first pair of turntables, it was with an old friend, and where he lived, it was kind of like a frat house, but I don't think there's really any connection to like college. So it's like, it's just kind of like the party house wherever we go on the weekend. So we had them there in the garage, and I was basically just like learning how to mix and beat match in front of just a bunch of random people partying.
Really?
Right.
So you just threw yourselves into the deep end, and
that's the only place where I could do it, right? Yeah. So I just did it, right? It wasn't like it wasn't even something that I really thought about.
Yeah, and it's unforgiving when you're using vinyls to.
Oh yes, using vinyl. I mean, the beauty of it is that everyone's just partying, right? They're not so like you're a little bit like wallpaper. Yeah, not 100%. Yeah, there's people that are a little bit interested. Yeah, there's people that hear the music, but for the most part, like everyone's just here at fun. They just glad that there's music playing, and it really got to like practice. Yeah, a lot of that practice time was in front of just people partying, and sure, once in a while I'd go over there like on a weekend in the afternoon or whatever, have like a couple hours to myself, and start to record my first actual mixtape.
Really?
Right? Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you still have those by chance?
I don't have
I
my
would have
first
loved to listen
mixtape.
to those.
I've actually being asked one of my old friends, my buddy Tofu, if he
Yeah.
has like some of my first
If you do,
mixtape.
please send it. I would love to post it with this
Yeah.
podcast. It'd
I
be
do have an older mixtape I did with my buddy Tofu.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just send it to me. I'd love to like put it out there so people can. I want like people to experience what the sound was back then, because I feel like what you would play back then compared to what most people hear today, night and day difference.
Oh, night and day. I mean, technology essentially, I believe, drives music.
Yeah.
No matter what era it is, it's like the technology available. Like the 80s is shaped by the synthesizers and the studio equipment
Yeah.
that was available at that time. Even back to the 70s, it was shaped by the recording equipment that was available at the time. So it continues to shape the music. And today, it's like sky's the limit when it comes to production and engineering.
Back then, you needed, for professional work, you needed like a whole room of equipment, compressors and tube amplifiers and saturators. Now you can just buy it all on a computer and then just walk around in it.
Totally. You definitely needed a lot more.
Yeah.
Some people get away with less, however.
Some people get creative, like
Exactly. However, at the end of the day, it's like, it's just experimenting, right?
see what works.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then if you can put it out there and it connects with people, then even better.
So I mean, yeah. So you're starting to perform now.
Yeah, I'm doing the house parties.
Yeah.
Just like practicing in front of people.
Yeah.
Did my first mixtape,
Uh-huh.
right? And I did like a couple different ones, but I was at first buying both, like, let's just call it house, or 4 on the floor, right? Which was house, progressive. It was a little bit of breaks. It was like, I guess you call like hard trance and even like some happy hardcore, right?
Yeah.
So I was like buying all that stuff on the floor. I was also buying, drum and bass, and jungle, which I really connected with. Yeah, because I remember the first time that I heard it, and it was on Groove Radio. So with my little stereo setup in my room, like I would have it playing at night with Groove Radio.
Okay.
And one night I woke up and it was like this jazzy music with funky drums and like a super deep bass line. And I like just talking about it, like I get the tingles, dude. And I'm pretty sure it was Alex Reese Candles.
Okay.
It was either that or it was Jamiroquai, Do You Know Where You Coming From? If you know that song.
I'm gonna
Check them both out, but I'm pretty sure it was Alex Reese Candles. So that's because I did go get that one, and it was just like so good. So good. Like I was really gravitated toward it. So I had to at a certain point decide, vinyl was getting more and more expensive, right? So I had to really decide at a certain point, like, okay, like which one I'm going to focus on.
Yeah.
Right. So I decided to focus on drum and bass, and my first mixtape was a drum and bass mixtape. And it was like a lot of like old DJ Hype, True Players, Urban Takeover, Aphrodite and Mulder, and just like whatever bits, that got squeezed in within all that. And I recorded it, and everything's raw, everything's live. There's no editing. You just got just one take, right? And just like okay, gotta make copies. Dual cassette deck.
Yeah.
You're like making copies like
Literally,
yourself.
it's like recording one blank, one master.
Yeah.
And then just
You just record
and you
it.
just sit there, wait for it to just go through the whole hour.
Yeah.
And it's not like a quick recording either.
No, it's real
Playing
time.
Real time.
It's everything's real time. Yeah, man. So it's like making manual copies of the tape.
Wow.
And it's like, and then like, okay, I have so many copies, like hand them out to people. So I met my buddy Tofu, who's originally from Sacramento, and I met him at a music store where I was getting my first own pair of turntables that were just mine.
Yeah.
And I ordered this mixer that I really wanted, and it took a while for it to come in. So I go in, see what's up, right? So like I went to the store, it was Whitaker Music in Long Beach, and I went in and I heard drum and bass coming from the DJ room. And like that was unheard of, right?
Oh, okay.
Right, I was like,
because drum and bass is like, at least back then, was very, not a lot of people even knew about drum and bass.
no,
Yeah.
no, not a lot of people.
So
like
it was like a rare sighting to even being heard.
exactly. So I walk in, I hear drum and bass coming out of the DJ room, and I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it's
I want to know what's going on there.
right. I was like, no way. It's like I walk in, and it's just like this scrawny brother just like rocking out on the decks. And I was like, yo, I'm like, dude, you play drum and bass? I was like, yeah. I was like, man, what's your name? He's like, Tofu. And I'm like, oh, I'm T.A.B.U. He's like, no, Tofu. I said, I know, I'm T.A.B.U. So it's like, and that was it. We just clicked. And he was one of the people that I gave my first mixtape to.
Okay.
And he was connected with the group, which was Jungle Voodoo out of LA. And, you know, he passed on my mixtape to them, which was Sherry and Mario and Randy J. Rest in peace to Mario. And they were doing this like warehouse party. They were involved in some party, and they were like, hey, like, you know, we have DJs for this room. Like, do you want to play? And it was in North Long Beach, and it was a 2-area drum and bass party. It was basically the first like 2-area drum and bass warehouse party.
When you say 2-area, you mean like 2 different locations?
2 rooms.
Oh, 2 different. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I mean, just a drum and bass party alone, you know, was rare.
Rare, yeah.
Right. It was like the first 2-area. They had like kind of like more jump up, original old school jump up, in like kind of one room, and then in the other room there's more tech step.
Okay.
Tech step was like, you know, coming up from like 98, 99. It's around that time, right?
It was kind of like the more newer sound.
Yeah, it was less breaks.
Oh, okay.
Right. I mean, even a lot of jump up was pretty like programmed, but it was even like more technical, like sharp, precise drums.
How to dodge,
Yeah, and like the bass was a little bit more experimental. The synths were a little bit more experimental.
Okay.
Right. Where I feel like jump up, what comes to mind right now is that outside of the drums and the bass, it was like more sampled.
Oh, okay.
Right. It was like a lot of sample bass.
Yeah.
But like this was more like a lot of synthesis, a lot of drum programming, drum machines.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I differentiate the transition, right?
Yeah.
From like jungle and jump up into like tech step.
Yeah.
Right. So like I played kind of more the jump up side, of course, like I mentioned earlier. And so yeah, they hit me up. It was like, that was like, it wasn't my first gig, but it was like one of the like first like big moments where I was like, oh shoot, like I'm actually playing like this party. But my first gig, funny enough, was from my buddy Richard, Matt Hatter, big ups. I can't remember. I still can't remember. He probably tells me over and over. Either way, I can't remember like how he found out about me. I probably gave him a mixtape or CD because I was actually started pressing my own CDs eventually.
Okay.
Yeah, like same thing. Like burn it on your computer. I like the sticker thing. Stamp it down. Like everything was like DIY, right? So, and he hit me up for this party, and it was like at this hall in Santa Ana, or kind of like a type of place where they would probably do a quinceañera.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was daytime. And like I show up and I'm like, oh shoot, like I was so nervous, dude. And like,
I bet.
I remember like putting the needle on the record, like
being nervous with vinyl.
Yeah, dude. It's like it's serious. Like don't stop the wrong record. It's like, we'll switch it over wrong.
Wow.
Yeah, dude. I was like, so I remember putting the needle down on the first record, like, making sure I don't scratch the record. I'm putting the needle down. It was super cool, and yeah, it's so awesome. Like that, you know, he's really actively involved again.
Okay.
You know, doing the Underland Radio show and podcast, and starting to do events again and all that stuff. It's kind of like ended up being full circle. Yeah, he actually came out to, like many years later, he came out to a show that I was playing at, which was at the Yoast. It was Havoc, and they were doing Planet of the Drums.
Oh,
yeah, and I opened up for Planet of the Drums, Diesel Boy Dar, A.K.A 1200, and he came out that night, and he was like, "Yo," I was like, "So cool, man!" And like he like little by little, he started getting back into it again.
Yeah,
and like to see like what he's doing now, it's like it's always just like re-inspiring. Like like I feel like I kind of re-inspired him to like start getting back into it, and he's in a radio show, which inspires me to do more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because at least in terms of doing more, you're not just a DJ. You produce.
Yes.
You promote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Produce, promote, what everything, dude. Everything. I've done a lot of graphic design.
Yeah.
As well, for
helping to promote everything as well.
Exactly. Whether it be for, mixtapes or CDs or, clubs or events for, once in a while for someone else.
Yeah.
So a lot of that.
When did you start producing?
So I started producing in, let's say 2000 around.
Okay.
And it was like definitely dabbling in a lot of ways. Like I was using a software called Acid.
I'm not familiar with that one, actually.
Yeah. It was originally, I think, started by a company called Sonic Foundry, if I remember correctly. I can't remember 100%. Yeah. Either way, eventually Sony bought it. And it was Sony Acid. Right?
It's a cool name.
Right. So I started with that, and it was super like amateurish,
stripped down, minimal.
Well, I mean, as far as like my technical ability, and I wasn't like super dedicated, but I did like make my first like beat, and I even got it cut to dub plate. You're familiar with dub plates? So dub plate is basically, it's a sheet of steel, right? The size of a record, and then they coat it, an acetate coating, and then they cut it like a record. So they put it on the lathe. Yeah, they put it on the lathe, and they cut the record, right? It's not even a record. It's like that actual record. So dub plate, culture comes from, dance hall, right? So that's what they had, the dub plates. Right. So it literally is like, it's a plate of metal inside. So they're heavier than your record. So I got it cut on dub plate and like played it in one of my sets, and it sounded like garbage. And I'm like, okay, like this isn't coming as naturally as I hope it would. So I just kind of off and on through the years, like.
You were producing more drum and bass though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was producing more drum and bass, and I would dabble, like I said. I like make some stuff, gig. Yeah. Gigs are kind of like that fix,
It's like that rush of adrenaline.
Yeah, it's like, when's the next gig? It's like, to focus, like I was going to school, I was working, I was doing all this stuff.
Yeah, when you had like a normal life outside of the thing that you had to kind of keep doing.
Totally. I had my first residency around that time, which was a little night called Phonics that was held in Long Beach at A.K.A. And it was just us hanging out on Thursdays, getting all sauced on like super strength dive bar drinks, and just listening to and playing drum and bass. And like, if people showed up, people showed up. People didn't show up, it didn't matter. We were just we're just having a good time. Yeah. Big up to Lou and Ben's. Home Away from Home. Miss those guys. I got to go over there. And dude, just us like super stiff drinks, dude. Just like loving our drum and bass music, and they let us do it, right?
Was it like a big thing with your friends? Like you guys would collect different musics and showcase it at these like, the residency and see works that don't work?
Yeah. I don't think we're really thinking about what works.
Yeah.
Like, we weren't testing music. We're playing music.
Yeah.
We're playing what we wanted. We play what we love. Like, we're like, just everyone's hanging out. Like, it wasn't like, okay, like this song didn't go well, like
Yeah,
for
right.
the audience. It was like, it was just us hanging out, man. It's like we play what we love, dude.
Would it be like your crate when you built it up over time? Like you kind of had a sound that you became known for?
Definitely.
Oh, that's a Mr. Wendell set or a Taboo set. Yeah.
Back then, definitely. And I was kind of starting to do the Mr. Wendell thing.
Okay.
It was like more at house parties, like friends' birthday.
Gotcha.
Someone in like, collective crews.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, there's birthday party, the turntable set up. And I have all my house stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm going to do house tonight. It's like, or it was like some random party. It's like, I'll put Mr. Wendell.
Yeah.
It's like kind of a joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that eventually came around to, like I said, took a life of its own for a moment, and like use it as a testing ground to kind of develop. Because I did start, although I started really producing drum and bass, I wanted to go with other inspiration as well, right?
Yeah.
So I was also started eventually dabbling in house. And with that, it felt like it was coming more natural from a production standpoint.
Oh, I see.
Right. I'm not going to say drum and bass is harder to produce, but I'm not going to say it's not.
I mean, coming from a producer standpoint, just in listening to music, I would listen to drum and bass, at least, especially now, because I'm still fairly new to it.
Right.
From a production standpoint, I'm like, it does have its complexity.
It's
for sure.
complex, dude.
Yeah.
It's complex. Yeah, it really pushes, I feel, the envelope of audio. It's a synthesis of everything.
Yeah, I feel like it can be
Right.
daunting for someone who's just getting into production, not to just learn how to use the software, but to produce the genre is already like monumental amount of work.
Exactly.
And at least like you said back then, the internet around the early 2000s was still very, not as resourceful. So what you learned on your own, maybe
You learn your own.
Yeah.
I think there was a certain point where YouTube came out and you might have a thing here or a thing there. But yeah, it was more word of mouth and just like getting the software and then getting in there and playing around, and you have a friend that produces and they'll tell you a couple things, or get into a studio with someone.
Yeah.
Kind of soak in what you can. And, a couple of people that I got to get in the studio with was my good friend Nick with Future Step Recordings and my buddy Mario. So we actually, they were producing stuff. They were, putting out making some pretty good drum and bass at the moment. And Nick and my buddy Sergio, they produced a track, and I was in the studio with them. I was like, oh yeah, I need a vocal. So I'm like, yeah, hey Wendell, you want to do a vocal? I'm like, sure, whatever. So I did the vocal on it. As it makes on them. Okay, cool. I was like, control the vibe in your mind just like one time. And recorded it, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, we laid it down, and like that got released on like.
Did you ever get to hear it on big speakers?
I've played it on big speakers.
So you got to hear your own voice.
Yeah. It did kind of get played, at least throughout the West Coast as well. Wow. Yeah, there were people playing it and kind of making it up. I don't know if it got officially released, but a lot of it was getting cut to dub plate even at that time. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, starting to transition into digital. Yeah. Like early time of transition digital. So there were a few people that are playing it on digital as well. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, by this point, at least right now, would you consider you're just producing, not techno, just house? Or
so at that moment, it was just drum and bass. Even then, I was still kind of dabbling, right? So I work a little bit of stuff here, and then gig, hang out with my friends. Oh, they're working on a tune. Okay. End up being involved. Just kind of like going with the flow. It wasn't until, probably 10 or so years later where I started to focus a little bit more. But it's still similar. Like I would focus for a while, and then
I was like an
gig, right? Or there's moments where I took a kind of a light break from music altogether.
Yeah.
Right. Work, rent,
Life,
all the stuff. Right. School, whatever it is, like would take over for a moment. But it would always come back.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a point again where doing mostly drum bass, and then kind of started like getting some different sound packs. I got some like house stuff. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I still love house, right? And kind of started playing with those packs, and again, it was just like flowing a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right. I must say, even back then, as far as like sound packs, like drum and bass producers like held stuff like a lot tighter.
Yeah.
Right. Like the secrets, right?
The gatekeeping.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you could call it that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, hey, they had to figure it out. It's like you got to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of was dabbling in some house, and yeah, it was just kind of flowing. I was like really enjoying like the end product of those songs. Did it need still a little bit more work, a little bit more dialing in? Definitely. Yeah. But like it was good. It was fun. It was like a lot better quality of the drum bass I was doing, which I did start to get like really into the groove. And then I had like a hard drive crash, like no backup. And like this was like shortly after working in my buddy Frankie Genetics studio. Like he was making some pretty dope drum and bass at the moment, and it's like sitting him, was like collaborating with him, in his studio, and like I learned a lot from that guy.
Yeah.
Like he was basically rewiring Fruity Loops before it was called FL Studio with Cubase.
Oh,
so that way they ran simultaneously.
Okay.
Yeah. It was this thing called rewiring, right?
Yeah.
So like I learned that from him, and the way that he like chopped up his breaks and his drums in Fruity Loops, and then rewired it into Cubase and did every other things in there.
Oh,
yeah. It was like mind blowing. He's just like one of the like smartest, most talented dudes like that I know. Like it's crazy. Either way, it's like I learned a lot like working with him, and cope like.
Kind of like mentoring, learning from how he does things.
Yeah, just like we were just like he was like, hey, yeah, I want to work on a tune. I'm like, okay, cool. Like over, work on a tune. And it was like mostly him in the captaincy, right?
Yeah.
And me, it's like, all right, like what about this? Okay, what about that?
Yeah.
What about this? Like, oh yeah, sure. It's like, and it was like, all right, cool. Like boom, a song. Like wow, right?
Yeah.
So, but just like watching and going back onto my computer. And then like using him the same technique. So I got this point where it's like I was really starting to like dial it in, and then like hard drive crash. And like so that was a pretty big blow. Took another break, right?
Yeah.
So there's always like some break, took a break. And that's when I started doing a little bit of house again. That's it, like I was talking about, doing a little bit of house, also a little bit of drum and bass, kind of bounced between the two.
Yeah.
I was definitely happier with how the house was coming at. Still need a little bit of work. Drum and bass need a lot more work, and just kind of being persistent through the years. Even whatever break it took, trying different DAWs, from FL to Cubase to Reason, right, to all the way to.
You ever do Ableton?
Logic, and then now Ableton.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been using Ableton?
I've used Ableton for maybe like 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, not that long. Yeah. Now I'd say about 3. Yeah, 3 or 4 years.
Do you enjoy it more when it comes to producing this genre music?
Ableton, out of everything, has just flowed the most natural for me. Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah,
I probably hear a lot of people say, at least when it comes to EDM, for sure.
Yeah, for me, just Logic was cool. There's still like certain things just weren't locking in for me.
Gotcha.
But something about Ableton just like clicked with me. Things really started to come together.
And you never touched techno, or did you?
Of course.
Yeah, I don't think we ever talked.
We didn't talk about techno.
Yeah.
Here's a funny thing about techno. So back on the PlayStation, there was this game called the MTV Music Generator.
MTV Music Generator. Okay.
Yeah. So what it was basically a sequencer with a bunch of samples.
No way.
So I produced a techno track on the MTV Music Generator.
No way.
Yeah, like way back. And like I was like, dude, this is pretty good. As I called it, warehoused or something like that, right? And I swear I found it and heard it. Not too long ago. I don't even know where it is, but I was like, dude, that's fun. So yeah, actually, I dabbled in techno, and even now I do dabble in techno. You know, along with Four on the Floor, house techno, progressive melodic, and techno.
Yeah. So have you? I mean, Mr. Wendell is the house and techno.
That has been, yes, that side.
Yeah.
It's more like open to the four. It was originally like more open to the 4/4 genre.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, like, I just love music, particularly electronic music. So even with the 4 on the Floor space, it's like there's just so many genres and so many subgenres within the genres that's where, again, like I kind of started using Mr. Wendell as a testing ground, so to speak.
Got you.
So I took all this stuff that I've been loving, right, for many years, like when I started collecting digitally, I'm like, okay, like what do I most resonate with, like playing wise? Because I was listening to like a lot of the, you know, Trance 2.0 stuff, like Injuna, that kind of stuff. And then you have like the big main stage progressive, like the Afrojack and the Hardwell and that kind of stuff. And, you know, of course, like house, still a big fan of like disco house, right?
It's always fun.
Yeah, disco house, filter house, like that kind of stuff. And everything in between.
Yeah.
You know, speed garage, like just, or garage.
Yeah.
Sorry, UK heads.
Oh, love it.
Yeah. So yeah, like everything, like across the board, everything within that, you know, that BPM range or that tempo.
It was kind of like open grounds for what you want.
Yeah. So actually, the first time that like I did a Mr. Wendell set after many years was for Dance Music Initiative.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're doing this thing at the Proof Bar, and like I was like, yeah, dude, I'd love to play. And I just took everything I had and I just went from like, I don't know, 118, 119, whatever BPM, all the way to like 138, like through the set. And it's like, I'm just going to just go on the ride and just see where it goes, right? Just have fun. That was kind of like the beginning of, you know, discovering and honing to like what will be my sound within that realm.
And then at least for the producing, I mean, can people hear it on Spotify? Is it all on there or?
So all of my stuff is private tracks right now.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm dialing in certain things.
Yeah.
I have few songs I'm really happy with. I did just release my first drum and bass song
we talked about
in
that.
many years. So I you know, that was on Bell Ringer Records many years ago. It's kind of like a free on SoundCloud type of thing.
Okay.
So it's like my first, you know, fully digitally distributed release, and that we released on Sci-Fighter Records.
Oh, okay.
Which is
congrats.
Thank you on the drum and bass tip, which is True Reflection, featuring Layla Reich, amazing vocalist from Chicago,
and you mentioned a music video?
The music video has been shot.
Okay.
And is currently being edited.
Okay. Oh, that's pretty exciting.
Yes.
So at least by the time I think I post this, hopefully that'll be already out.
Possibly.
And make sure people see it too.
Possibly. Yes, indeed. Yeah. So yeah, you can find it under T.A.B.U. True Reflections on Spotify.
Yeah, and I'll make sure to have the link set up in this.
Sweet. Yeah, on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music.
Can we expect any more releases in 2025 as a
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I have some bits, a couple, like at least two that are ready, I feel.
Drum and bass or house?
A couple of bits on the house techno side.
Okay.
And then another bit on the drum and bass side,
Okay.
right, with other ideas that are being fleshed out as well. And we were talking earlier about like, how did you learn earlier, right?
Yeah.
So that was definitely different. But even now, like I still like seek mentorship, right?
Yeah.
Right. So like I'm always saying like, oh, here's music that I like, and reach out. And I've been pretty blessed to be mentored, here and there by some pretty amazing drum and bass artists.
Yeah.
Like one of them was Teddy Killers. I've had a few sessions with them. Then Drum Sound of Drum Sound and Bassline Smith,
Yeah.
Technique Recordings, and most recently Prolix
Okay.
as well on the drum bass side. So with their kind of guidance, I've been able to dial things in a lot more.
Yeah. Do you feel like your drum and bass producing has caught up with your house and techno?
Definitely.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So now the confidence is there to really put out the quality you want to be heard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And every song is unique in its own way, especially for me because I love so much.
Yeah. It's hard to just stick to one.
Right. It's like I just can't like pull out the same break from the last tune. Like, and honestly, that was the case for I feel like a good amount of artists. Like they had their sound, which they would use the same drums.
Yeah.
Just like get a little slightly different on the bass lines,
Yeah.
right? And just like I said, it was like sample bass, so they come in with different samples over the same drums,
Yeah.
right? So like now it's like I have such a diverse spectrum of subgenres that I like to glue together.
Yeah.
So the goal is to produce within all of those subgenres, so that way as I play my sets, I can take it in different directions with my own production as well. Right. So my production is going to reflect fully how I play as a DJ.
Yeah. And I think that's actually, I love that you brought up that point, because I think when it comes to producing, one question I always think is like, where do I see my track being played?
Right.
Do I want my track to be something that changes the vibe? Do I want my track to be like that banger that everyone hears and then, moves on, or like a closing track or an opening track?
Right.
So these kinds of things are stuff you don't really like hear people talk about. You kind of like learn as you go.
Right. Totally.
Because like for me, when it comes to producing tracks, I love very melodic, cinematic, long breakdowns.
Okay.
So
yes,
Yeah.
I get into those too.
yeah.
I've had some people say your breakdown's too long.
Oh yeah, I've heard
Like, like some of my earlier mentors, like especially on the house side, like, no, it's not. It's art. It's art.
my argument.
Don't get it.
See, my counter argument to them is that like my intention is for my track to be that track that you play where people kind of take a break.
Okay.
Yeah, where people are like, all right, let's chill for a sec.
Go grab a drink.
Let's go grab a drink. Let's calm the nerves a little bit. Okay, like that's where I want my tracks to be played.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but like, I love that you brought that up, because like I thought I was the only one who kind of thought this way.
Well, yeah. I mean, I want my production to, again, like reflect who I am as a DJ.
Yeah.
Right. So if I have a collection of sounds that I like to dip into,
Yeah.
I want my production to show that, because there were moments where like some of your favorite producers would come into town and they have a certain style. They were like, oh, it's LA and they like this, so they play a lot of this other stuff that's not their artist sound. And I'm like, oh man, that's not what I came here to hear.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know what I mean? So it's like I want people to be able to connect to me through my developing body of work, and understand that they're going to get a journey through that, as well as they're going to get a journey in my sets.
So essentially you've built yourself like a toolkit of tracks that allow you to be more free and expressive with your sets.
Correct.
Yeah, that's really cool, honestly.
While of course still bringing in some of my favorite producers and that are creating out there.
So at least because we're almost wrapping up here, at least for the year of 2025, what are a couple things that people can expect to hear and see and look forward to?
Well,
Yeah.
that's a great question. So right now, definitely, expect to hear more music, as that comes out,
Yeah.
and events. So we are hosting a drum and bass event again that we did many years ago called Refuge.
Okay.
Yes, and that is more on the heavier side generally.
Yeah.
More like maybe some liquid, maybe some rollers. Like the word rollers has changed as well, right?
Yeah.
Everything has changed. Like deep house. Well, what's deep house? Well, what year are we talking about? Is it 95 deep house? Is it 2005 deep to 2010 deep house, or is it 2024 deep house?
Yeah.
You got to get very specific. So like kind of more old school, like
Okay.
like 2010s roller,
Yeah.
right, type of sound. Rough, more edgier, tighter jungle,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Will this event be
Some neuro, like I always have to throw in the neuro.
was it neural? Oh,
Neuro bass, yeah, yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like, yeah.
They're really fun to produce. To say.
Some heavy heavy stuff. Yes.
Where's it going to be located? LA, San Diego?
So it is in San Gabriel Valley. It's kind of
Okay. It's an outdoor event.
It's an underground-ish kind of thing. So you gotta go.
Outside.
Yeah, you gotta go. So the next one's gonna be January 18th.
18th. Okay.
Yes, and that's a Saturday. And so some events coming up. We want to have a balance between bringing in talent from either out of the state or out of the country, with also balancing it with like local, more local, SoCal, LA, OC, whatever it may be, San Diego, DJs as well. So kind of mix.
It's like a diverse set list of artists. Yeah.
Yeah, like you say, one night you might have someone from out of time. Another night you just maybe hometown heroes, and old friends in you.
Yeah.
Right. But the big thing about that is, we, even back then, it's like we want to bring a sound consistently that you might not hear at your most of your drum and bass nights, right?
Yeah.
Like they do honor those sounds, but it's more like a here or there. So we want to have a place where people come and hear those sounds consistently.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
January 18th, you said.
January 18th, first. Yes, that is the next date. And with that, a big part is to make sure like the sound is like just really dialed.
Oh.
Yes.
All right.
Really nice, full, balanced, beautiful sound.
Nice.
Right. So if you want to hear some really good, heavy or deep drum and bass, or some really good sound with some really cool people,
all right,
then that's where we are.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the episode. Well, thank you for coming, first of all. I had a lot of fun with this conversation.
I know. I'm honored. Really appreciate you considering me.
Yeah, definitely.
Through.
Yeah, we're definitely going to bring you back next season, and I'm just excited to hear how like 2025 is going to go for you.
So am I. But so far, 2024 is wrapping up amazingly.
Yeah.
Just like so mind blowing. Like I'm really excited to see how things continue to develop.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.